Hi, Professor Gadosh. My name is David Puelko, and I'm going to be doing my oral report on Georges Melies and the impact that he has had on the filmmaking industry. Born in Paris on December 8, 1861, Georges Melies was born to entertain. As a child, he loved to perform sock puppet theaters, and later on in his teenage years, marionettes. After Melies graduated high school in 1880, he discovered a new passion, magic. After selling his shares in his family's shoe business and with help from his wife, Melies purchased the Theatre Robert Houdin, the same theater he attended that initially sparked his passion for magic. It is here that Georges Melies began his work as a magician. Not only did he direct and produce many of the shows that were featured at the Robert Houdin Theater, he also invented many of the magic tricks that were performed. In 1895, Georges Melies had another life-changing experience. He was present for the first film premiere by the Lumiere brothers in Paris. After viewing their picture, he even offered to buy their camera, but they refused, so instead, he built one. And not only did he create his own camera, but he also created his own film studio, called Star Film Company. Now this is where Georges Méliès' story really starts. He was not very often remembered for his stage career as much as he was often remembered for being a filmmaker, and this allowed him to constantly push the boundaries as he had no benchmark to look up to or no standard that was normal for films of his time. So he ended up inventing many film techniques that are still used today. Some examples include dissolves, time-lapse photography, and multiple exposures. Georges Méliès is often wrongfully accredited with creating stop-motion technology, which he showcased in his 1896 film The Vanishing Lady. Thomas Edison actually invented the method 1 year earlier in the execution of Mary Stuart. Here you can see the executioner chops off Mary Stuart's head. Well, I know it may be hard to believe, but they switched the actress with a dummy. Sticking to what he knew best, his early films mostly showcased magic tricks. Using special effects, Georges Méliès was able to create some truly spectacular moments for 20th century audiences. Magic was a perfect genre for Méliès to start working on because he loved showcasing the capabilities of film and cameras. Magic was not the only topic he made movies about, though. Throughout his career, Méliès made over 500 films, covering every genre from comedy to drama to documentaries. Storyline was never important in Méliès' earlier films. His first films were simply remakes of the Lumiere brother films, or were short movies that showcased a trick or effect for a brief time, such as this example of his double exposure effect in his movie The One Man Band. Here is another example of Mia's talents. In the movie Cendrillon, he uses stop-motion effects to make the princess disappear, and then transitions to the next scene with the dissolve. All of his practice and fine-tuning of skills led Méliès to create his most famous masterpiece, A Trip to the Moon. A Trip to the Moon was a 12-minute movie with a narrative structure that is quite easy to follow along with despite being a silent film. It tells the story of a group of astronomers who are propelled to the moon by a cannon. Upon landing, they decide to rest after such a difficult journey. When the astronomers wake up, they start to see that the moon is a very different place from the Earth. One of the astronomers' umbrellas turns into a mushroom, and aliens attack the group but are quickly dispatched into a puff of smoke. After the astronomers' journey is over, they tip their spacecraft off the moon and make a safe splash landing back on Earth. Unfortunately, in 1912, Méliès stopped making films, not even 20 short years after he began his era of innovation, although in that short time he was able to create over 500 films. By 1923 he was bankrupt, and the theater that he discovered his love for magic in and showcased his knack for filmmaking was demolished. Despite the fact that Méliès lost everything, it's clear to see that his legacy has not been forgotten. Whenever anyone talks about the pioneers of filmmaking or the men and women who brought this medium to the forefront, Georges Méliès' name is always mentioned.